It's recording.
I'm not entirely sure there is a direct translation of third culture kid in Malay. I've had people come up to me, they've heard me speaking Malay on the phone and they waited until I put the phone down and then they said, "Wow, are you speaking British? Is that what they speak in England?" Hai, nama saya Serena. Saya lahir di Kota Kinabalu, Sabah, Malaysia. Sama saya orang TCK. That's a complicated one. I tell people I'm from Malaysia, from Kota Kinabalu, Sabah, but my parents are English and I consider myself an honorary American because I've been living in San Francisco, best city in America, for the last 5 years. I guess I'm kind of a mix of the three. That's always such a difficult question. Where do you call home? Well, I grew up here, so this is kind of like home in a way. I have all my childhood memories and favorite restaurants, and a lot of my family is still here. But I know it sounds like such a cliche, but the more you move around, I think the more you start to realize that home is more the people than the place. Whenever I'm with my friends and with my family, that's home. It doesn't matter if it's Argentina or England. Being a third culture kid, I mean, it can make you confused about where you belong, which is something that I found very hard to deal with when I first moved to the States and I was coming back to Malaysia, and it was kind of like I was so unbelievably culture shocked. I didn't understand how things worked anymore. Like I remember when I arrived in Singapore, I tried to tip the taxi driver like 5 extra Sing dollars, because that's what you always do in the States. And he like came running after me into the lobby, like, "Miss, you forgot your $5, and I was so embarrassed. You have to accept to a certain extent that you're going to have to modify your behavior depending on what kind of people you're dealing with and where you're living. Probably one of the hardest things for me was the difference in size. Growing up in KK, you get used to like a kind of atmosphere where you know where everything is and everybody drives everywhere. Everybody knows each other. The waiters at all the cafes recognize you, and it's great and it's lovely. And in San Francisco, you don't get that. It's anonymous. You're walking around the city and no one knows who you are and nobody cares either. And that was very, very liberating, and it was also very, very scary. I mean, it can make you feel completely alone. Etiquette here is very different than etiquette in the States a lot of the time. I mean, in the States, it's considered like the height of rudeness to start a conversation with asking somebody what you do for a living. Whereas I feel like in England and in Malaysia, it's such a common question to break the ice. So that took some getting used to. There's all the different phrases. I mean, I remember the first time in school when I first went to high school in the States, I asked what a dustbin was, and no one had any idea what I was talking about. And it took me about 5 minutes to make them understand that I meant a trash can. Probably the most embarrassing was when I asked my teacher if he had a rubber, and I had no idea that that had very bad connotation. That was pretty humiliating. They can be very good, or they can be very, very, very bad. I think you have to have a certain kind of mindset and a certain kind of attitude if you're going to make like a cross-cultural relationship successful. I'm very lucky. My boyfriend has traveled a lot. He's kind of like a TCK himself. He was born in England and he grew up in Canada, and he moved to the States as a teenager. So I don't have that many issues with him, though it was kind of like a little bit shocking when he first came to Asia and he didn't know what was going on, and there was so much that was different. One of my exes was kind of like the typical all-American type guy. He came to visit me in London when I was on a course. It was difficult. He thought everybody was being rude to him, you know, just because I guess in the States people are quite like, they tend to be a little bit more gushy. than the English. I find that the English are quite reserved a lot of the time, and it's not rudeness, it's just, you know, the way they are. It seems to be the like perception in England that if somebody is really gushy and really like, you know, overly affectionate, they're being a little bit fake or false. So if somebody's a bit reserved when they're talking to you, they don't kind of like wash over and hug you and do all of that. They're not being rude, they're just being English. He didn't understand that. He'd never left the States before in his life. And like, he'd certainly never been to London, and just everything was different. The misconceptions that people have when they haven't traveled about the rest of the world are quite staggering. Growing up in a place like KK, where I was in an international school, most of my friends traveled, were from other places, it can be quite shocking to realize that a lot of people haven't. I've had people come up to me and ask me, do they speak English in the UK? And I'm just like, how do you not know this? There's obviously the normal perceptions when you say, oh, I grew up in Borneo, and they're like, you have electricity, you have running water, did you go to school swinging on a python like Tarzan? You know, I mean, you just have to take it in your stride and deal with it, because traveling is really a privilege. One of my absolute like favorite words in Malay is alamak. It conveys so much, you know, so much better than oh my god or like oh flip. I love all the la's and the bars that people like put on the end of sentences. You have to be like Malaysian or have grown up here to understand where you have to put the la and the bar. Boleh ba, sabarlah. So I love that.